My name is Janet Frank. I work at Utah Valley Hospital, and it's my pleasure to introduce Danny Rowan to you tonight. She is the Communities That Care Coordinator for Pleasant Grove City, and she's also been working with the Everyday Strong from United Way, their program. She's a mother of 4, so I'm sure she has practiced all of these principles live and in person. So I'm going to turn the rest of the time over to her, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Janet. Okay, I want to welcome you all and just let you know that I am excited and honored to be here to give this presentation. And just so you know, we are streaming this online. So with our comments, I'll probably just repeat them so that the people watching on the stream can hear what you have to contribute as well. So I'm a peer support trainer with United Way and Everyday Strong, and that means I'm not a professional, really anything, but I have been trained to give this presentation, and everything that we're going to talk about here today comes from a panel of experts in child psychology, including, this was really spearheaded by Dr. Matt Swenson, who's a child psychiatrist. He used to work for IHC. He's working with some different mental health things with other pediatricians in the Valley right now. So we're going to jump in. The title of our program today is Everyday Strong, Creating a Back-to-School Plan, Addressing Anxiety and Depression. So we are going to not address school necessarily, but what you'll see and what you'll learn here will broadly apply to going back to school and any anxiety and depression that we may be seeing related to school. So just think about that and how that applies in that situation. So one thing that you may have been hearing a lot lately is about building resilience in kids and the need for resiliency. And one thing that we know is that resilience requires relationships. It's not just something you can teach someone to be resilient. It kind of grows up from healthy, supportive relationships. So we're going to talk today about that, because when we think about childhood trauma, and why is it that some kids overcome and adapt to that trauma and go on to thrive in life, and others have these lifelong scars that kind of flatten their potential? And we have a growing body of evidence now that points to one common answer, and that is that every child who winds up doing well has had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive adult. So we want to be those supportive adults for the kids in our lives, right? Whether that's our own children, our grandchildren, if maybe you're an educator, or maybe you work in the hospital setting or clinical in some other way. Anytime we interact with a child, we have this opportunity to build these kind of relationships. So we're going to kind of look at this in maybe a little bit of a different way here today. Our objectives today are to learn and think about a new way to think about children's mental health and behavior, and learn a simple and practical framework to clarify your concerns maybe that you have about a child that you're close to. Then we're going to practice applying this in some real life situations. And if you have a real life situation you want to bring at the end, we'd love to hear it and see if we can apply this framework to that situation. Okay, so we do know, you all are here at a Mental Health Awareness Summit. We do know that this is a topic that is of increasing concern. And here in Utah, we're no exception. There is a survey called the SHARP survey. It is a questionnaire given to 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders every 2 years, and they ask a wide variety of questions about their physical and emotional state. And one of the questions that's a pretty good screener for clinical anxiety and depression is, during the past 12 months, did you ever feel so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row that you stopped doing some usual activities? And what we've seen in the past 10 years or so is a doubling in the percentage of kids answering yes to this question. Now, this latest data is from 2019, so it'll be interesting to see when the SHARPS data comes out again what the pandemic has done with these questions. But we do know that it's increasingly we're seeing the answer yes, being to this question of feeling so sad or hopeless. So when we think about this, and we know it's becoming more of a problem, what's the first question that you think we get? Why, right? That's what was all on all of our minds. Why? And if you're a mental health professional, I know you've been asked, why is this happening? Any theories? Anything you've heard? What are some of the theories going around, or speculations, or what do we think? What's causing this increase in anxiety and depression?
There's been a lot thrown around about prevalence of social media. Use.
Okay, so social media and technology use. That's a big one. That's usually the number one answer, right? We have cell phones, we've got social media. What else? Any other theories that you've heard? Yeah.
Lack of involvement from both parents.
Okay, so families. Our family structures are maybe not ideal, or what we might consider ideal. What else? So what the question is, for those of you just joining us, what is the cause, do we think, or what have you heard about why it is that we're seeing an increase in kids struggling with anxiety and depression? We've mentioned social media, technology, families. Any others that you've heard? Yeah.
We have more visibility. Yeah, a lot more celebrities. Yeah, I struggle with this, and a lot more public figures doing that. So they're seeing it, and they're like, I struggle with that. So it's a lot more visible today.
Okay, so there's a lot more awareness. It's a lot more visible, she said. There's, we see a lot more in the media, celebrities, yeah. We might hear that maybe school, there's a lot of pressure at school. That's another one. Maybe you've heard this one, that altitude can cause anxiety and depression. I mean, that's something that we hear. So as we're thinking about this causation, I want to just do a little thought experiment here real quick. And imagine that I'm trying to train for a marathon, and I just keep hitting a wall at mile 8. And so I come to you and I say, yeah, man, I really want to run this marathon. This is a goal I have, but I just can't get past mile 8. It's so discouraging. So what might you suggest to me? Now, I am going to posit that depending on how you approach the world and your past experiences and how you solve problems, generally you might look at this problem of me running a marathon in a few different ways. You might say, well, it's biological. You're not getting the right nutrition. You're not getting enough sleep. Look at you. Your genes, it's just not in the cards. You might say, you got to just psych yourself up a little bit more. This is all about the motivation. When you hit that wall, you got to push through it. You'll get a runner's high. Maybe you have a more spiritual take. Maybe I need some mindfulness, some meditation practice, maybe. Social, you need a buddy. You need a buddy to push you, or a cheering section. Join a Facebook group. Educational. There's a great book about running marathons. It'll solve your problem. Or maybe you just need to learn a little bit more about physiology. Environmental. You got to run in the morning. You got to get the right shoes. You got to wear the right leggings. I don't know. So which of these might be the reason that I can't get past mile 8? All of them, right? It could be some of one, some of the other. They might interplay with each other. So let's take this analogy and translate it to what if we're talking about the causes of anxiety and depression. It can be, and often has, a biological component. We know this. There's some genetics involved. It can, the quality of sleep, our neurology, diet, exercise, the amount of light you get in your eyes. I mean, there are a lot of things physiologically that affect the way we feel. Psychologically, motivation therapy can help, so we know that that's part of it. Spiritual, it can have a spiritual. Mindfulness is a big one. Social, we know that kids that are bullied are going to struggle with this more than others. So, and then also educational, kids that learn coping skills. We decrease the stigma. Environmental, there's a component of what's going on at school, what's going on in our families, the culture that we live in. Even, maybe the air quality. Are we all feeling a little more groggy lately than usual, right? But the point of this is that it's really, really hard to tease out any one or two causes of what's going on here. It's multifactorial, and all of these factors play with each other. They're interconnected. There's really no way to narrow it down and break it up like that. You just can't separate them. Well, that's discouraging, right? If we can't find the cause of the problem, we can't fix it. But what I want to do today is hopefully show that even if we don't know the exact cause or causes, we can still address the problem if we shift the way we are looking at it. So the way we're going to do that is by focusing on what people need. We're just going to ignore causation for the next 45 minutes. And we're going to focus on needs, because we all have needs. How many of you are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Okay, most of you, yes. So this is a pyramid, right, where we say we need these foundational needs, and then there's needs beyond that. So we're going to look at that in this lens and how we can use that that approach to those who might be struggling with anxiety and depression, and specifically the kids in our lives. So we all know that we have physical needs, right? We all need to be able to get some rest. We need to keep our bodies the right temperature. We need to eat, right? This is all pretty obvious. And how well do we function when we aren't meeting those needs? Not great, right? And how well do kids function when they're not meeting those needs? Really not great, right? So we know that. It's a kid that's hungry is not going to thrive at school or at home. But we have emotional needs beyond that, and that's what we're going to focus on today. The first is safety, and here we're talking about emotional safety. The next level up is connection, and that's having connection relationships with the people around us. Kind of it's talked about in that first slide. And finally, confidence or competence, and that's building the skills that we need, that our kids need, in order to thrive. And this whole theory, this way of looking at things, suggests that if these needs are met from the bottom up, that kids will thrive. And an important point here is that thriving, we have to believe that the kids will thrive in the way that they were meant to thrive. And that doesn't necessarily always mean the way we think they were meant to thrive. And this can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. The analogy I like to think of is, if I were to build a birdhouse and I bought a kit to build a birdhouse and it cut all the pieces together and, they give me the cut list and my hardware and the instructions, step 1s through 10, and if I go and I know that if I do this just right, I'm going to have a beautiful birdhouse at the end of my project and I can hang it up and put birdseed in it and enjoy, the birds. Sometimes I think we look at children that way. We've read all the parenting books, and if we follow all the steps, then at the end we'll have this product that we have molded and followed the instructions to achieve. But kids aren't like that, right? I like to think kids much more as seeds, where you buy a packet of random seeds, you don't know what you're going to get. But what you do know is that a seed needs soil, it needs water, and it needs light. And your job is to create that environment and nurture that seed, and then just enjoy the journey of seeing what that plant turns out to be. You don't really have any control over what it turns out to be, whether you got a pumpkin plant that's going to go bananas or kind of a more fragile. My sweet peas died, guys. My mom told me it'd be too hot. She was right. So we don't necessarily have any control over that. We really don't. So if we can look at this as providing the environment and allowing our kids to thrive into what they came with, what they were meant to be, that's what we're looking at doing here. So let's dive in a little deeper onto each of these ladder or this pyramid. So I want you to think about what it means to be safe. Think about who is someone in your life, and I really hope that all of you have at least one person where you feel like you can be yourself with them, that they really know you. You can kind of let your hair down and just, think about that person. And I want you to think about, what does that person do to help you feel safe with them? And if anybody's willing to share, I'd love to hear it. Yes. Empathizes. Okay. So when you share something, do they try and talk you out of your feelings? That's kind of the opposite of empathy, right? Okay, what else? Yes. They don't judge. What does that mean? Oh. Thank you. Awesome. They don't make you feel shameful or, what was the other word you used? Guilty about the things that you share with them. Thank you. Yes. Okay, they really want to understand you. Yeah, sometimes we're not really listening, right? Sometimes the noise is coming in and we're doing something else. What else? Anything else? Think about someone that you feel safe with. Okay, let's look at how we can apply this to the children in our lives, how we can help them to feel safe, because they need that safety feeling. They need to feel safe to talk. Do we allow our kids to talk and express themselves? Do we talk them out of their feelings? Do we talk them, if they're working through a problem out loud or saying something that we think is a little bit silly or dumb, do we tell them, no, that's not how you do it. I've had 30 years of life experience. This is how we fix that problem. Or do we let them talk through it? Are they safe to be themselves? Are they safe to be seen for who they really are? If they're growing up to be a pumpkin plant, but we're hoping for a birdhouse, how are they going to feel when they know that we're hoping for the birdhouse? and they know they're a pumpkin plant? Are they safe to be themselves? Is it safe to have feelings? How many kids and teenagers have really big feelings? All of them, right? Some kids have really big feelings. I have a son that feels great joy and great sorrow. His range is here. And when he's joyful, it's wonderful, and when he's sorrowful, it is rough. But does he feel safe to share all that whole range of feeling with me? I'll give you an example. He's 9, and this summer we have a friend that they've had a little bit of a rocky relationship, and he didn't want to play with this friend, but this friend came to the door, and so my son said, all right, I'll play with John. And they spent 2 days together, had a great time. I was like, wow, this is great. They're getting along. And then at the end of the second day, he burst in the door and just said, Mom, this is why I didn't want to play with John. It felt like he was blaming me. This is why I didn't want to play with John, because he said these rude things about me, and this always happens. And he just kind of went off and off and off. And my knee-jerk reaction was, well, listen, Andrew, if you don't want to play with John, then you just tell John that you don't want to play, and you can end it before it gets there. And I just went off on this lecture. And luckily for Andrew and me, I had this kind of in mind, and I caught myself. And I thought, I have just shut down his feelings. And I said, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry you had a rough time with John. And just left it at that. And you know what? It blew over. He was fine. But I want to cultivate that relationship where he can come in and tell me things, even that are a little bit annoying, that in my adult mind I can see are totally irrational, but it's still safe to come and tell me what they are. Safe to explore. Do kids feel like they can explore things that are foreign to us, that maybe we aren't fans of? Can they explore those things they feel safe to explore? Do they feel safe to be separated from us? And do they feel safe to fail? This is a big one. Even as adults, we struggle with this. Do we feel safe to fail? If we make a mistake, is it the end of the world? You know, we tend to catastrophize things sometimes. If I come home with a C, is it going to be okay? Am I communicating to my kids that it's okay? It's okay to fail, to make mistakes, or for things to not turn out how I hoped, that it's still going to be okay. We can still live a happy life when things didn't turn out the way maybe we planned or we hoped for. So when we have this kind of safe relationship, and again, I want you to think about what it feels like with someone you can just kind of let your hair down and let it all out, that opens up the door to feel connected. Because when we're safe, we can open to connect. I want you to think about the last time you felt really connected to someone, and what was going on in that moment. Just someone that you felt connected to, where you felt like, you know, it's a hard word to define, but you kind of know it when you feel it, you know? What's something, can you think of something recently maybe that's happened where you felt connected to somebody? It could be a spouse, a child, a friend. Yes?
I have a daughter. She had a rough childhood. So cleaning, because we're moving into a new house, ready, she was helping me melt it. And just, you know, done. She didn't want this. And she ran out, so I gave her a couple hours, and I went over and I talked to her. And she just started asking me questions like, did I remember her childhood? Was it, like, did I ever feel bad about things that had happened? Like, just started talking. And afterwards, she was like, it's okay that you moved, you know, it's because now I can, like, accept it, and we're good. And it's been, like, so much better ever since, because now she can, like, speak, and she knows that I'll go ahead and listen.
Oh. Awesome. So she was just sharing that with her daughter, they were able to have a really heartfelt conversation, maybe about some things that had happened in the past. And that was a really connecting moment. Thank you for sharing that. What else? Could be big things like that, or could even be small things. What are some other ways that, yes?
I usually feel the most connected with immediate family preference with my wife to like a twofold thing, right? Like sharing an experience, but also coming out of that experience with the same.
Okay.
Like, because you can share an experience with someone, but then like you talk about it afterwards, you don't relate to that experience in the same way. But being able to have shared experiences come out of those on the same ground, I think that's when I feel the most.
Awesome. So what he said was having a shared experience and then coming out of that experience feeling like you had a shared experience, right? You can relate about that experience. You come away feeling the same way about it. Okay, awesome. Any other thoughts? Yes. Yes. I love that. So what she said was she was in Target and she has her 2-year-old who's having a meltdown, and then another mom has her 2-year-old who's having a meltdown, and they just share a moment with the eyes, right? Have we all had that sometimes? You just share a moment with the eyes. Those are the kind of things that help us feel connected, right? And our kids need that kind of connection too. And it doesn't always have to be a big moment. It can be small. We're going to talk about some of the ways that we can connect with the kids. And I think it's really important that we think about safety being the precursor to connection, because it's hard to connect when you're not feeling safe, right? Because if we're protecting ourselves from whatever emotional thing we're afraid of, the connection gets blocked, right? So here's some ways that we can connect. We can connect through apologizing. Why would it be so important or so powerful for kids to see adults apologize to them? You think about that? Yeah.
We tell them all the time, if you do something wrong, you need to apologize. So you actually hit them, you have to apologize. But then they're always watching. Kids are constantly watching adults, just copying behavior and everything. And if we never take the time after we've done something wrong and we're in the wrong to be like, you know what, I'm really sorry for that. That was me stepping out of bounds, and I blew it way out of proportion, or I did this in this situation. And it shows them that we're not above them in a sense of like, oh, I'm better than you. You don't have to do anything that I'm telling you to do. And it shows them that we're on the same level. We all apologize for our mistakes. They see that and feel better about having to do it.
Yes, awesome. I hope those watching online could hear what you said. The summary was we have to set that example for our kids. It's a great example. We're always telling them that they should be apologizing. So if they see us do it, that's really powerful, right? And it kind of puts us on the same level. Because usually what's our relationship with the children in our lives? One of authority, right? So usually we're the authority and they're the ones we're bossing around, telling what to do, and for good reason. Their prefrontal cortexes are not developed. They need to borrow ours. It's fine. But that position of authority, when we can apologize when we've done something, when we haven't shown up the way we would expect of ourselves or we'd expect of them, that opens them up to that connection to see, yeah, look, mom isn't perfect. Mom is willing to come down on my level and connect with me. So apologizing is so powerful. Don't ever underestimate it. And it's a little bit vulnerable as an adult to offer a sincere apology, but that opens us up to that connection, which is so crucial. Another great way to connect is through writing. I love this one. I have a 11-year-old, daughter, that sometimes causes me to want to question my desires to have children. And I love her, but it takes a lot of energy to keep things running smoothly with her sometimes. And what that ends up meaning is that a lot of what she hears from me is, are you doing this? Are you on task? Please stop bothering your brother. Blah, 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 blah. Stop, start, right? And I'm tired. I don't want to connect with her. She's driving me crazy. I just want a break. And so one thing I have found to connect with her that has been helpful is to write her a little note about how much I love her and admire her and the things about her that I see that she's working on, and leave it on her nightstand or stick it in her journal or whatever. And when she reads those, she comes out glowing, gives me a big hug. And that's a powerful way to connect, especially if we're not feeling a lot of energy in the moment, because they can be treasured, they can be reread. We express things differently when we write them down. So that's another wonderful way to connect. Connect through playing and laughing. So the play therapists are fond of saying we have to lose our dignity to find our child. As adults, sometimes we're really uptight. We're taking everything really seriously. And if we want to connect with our kids, maybe we can shake a little bit of that off. Because kids love to play. They love to have fun. Even teenagers love this. And deep inside all of us, there's a kid in there wanting to play too. And if we can find that and connect on that level, be a little bit silly, dance around the kitchen maybe, those sorts of things, that's a great opportunity to connect with kids. Connect through asking. This is another one. This was kind of touched on here on someone's comment, and I just really want to distinguish the difference between asking and interrogating. We don't connect through interrogating. That's the opposite. Where were you? Who was there? What were you doing? What time? Blah, 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 blah. What we mean by asking is really trying to get to know someone a little bit better. What's it like to be you? You know, what are you loving to do for fun? Can you show me how to play Minecraft? Right? So these are ways that we can connect on a kid's level through asking. Okay. These are questions that express your desire to get to know them better. And another thing is, if we don't know how to connect, especially as our kids get older, it gets trickier, right? We can just say that. You know, I really wish we could feel more connected, but I don't know what to do. What could we do to feel more connected? I'd love to feel more connected to you. And we can just say it right there. You know, sometimes as parents and even as teachers, we think we have to, you know, be so clever. But we can just come right out and say, I would like to do this and I don't know how. I don't know. Really powerful. Kind of along there with the apology. I don't know how. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'd love to. And we have to insist and persist on connection, especially with some of those prickly kids. Just keep going. Just keep trying and don't give up. Okay, so this is kind of the crucial take home here, which is that if you have a safe and connected relationship, then you can do the next level, which is encouraging and facilitating and nurturing confidence or competence. So I want you to think about how it feels when someone tries to fix all your problems for you. I'm sure we've all had one of those conversations where we go in and we say, this, and this happened, and the person that we love and is talking to us says, well, have you done this, and this? It's so obvious. Just fix your problem my way, right? How does that feel? Who loves that? Nobody, right? Do we go to that person again and tell them our problems? No, we don't want to, because that's not what we're looking for, right? And it undermines our confidence to be able to fix it ourselves. On the other hand, if you actually are asking for help with something and someone offers you nothing, that's not very encouraging either, right? How does that feel, right? So let's think about this and how it can apply to our kids. And I'll give you a little bit of an example, a little story that Dr. Swenson likes to tell. Imagine that maybe you go to work and your boss comes in and asks you to do something. He says, this is a really important thing. I need you to do it by the end of the day. And you say, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then your day goes on and you kind of forget about it. And maybe you do a bunch of other great things. Maybe you miss your lunch break to help a coworker and you take a few extra tasks on. And by the end of the day, your boss comes back and he says, hey, did you do this thing? And you're, oh, I forgot. And they just kind of lay into you. Your boss just says, oh, I knew I couldn't rely on you, and just kind of rips you, flays you. And you go home, how are you feeling? Terrible, right? You feel terrible. And you go home to your significant other and you tell them the whole story. Now, your significant other can respond in one of four ways. They could just kind of be like, oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, oh, that sounds awful, yeah, Not really listen, right? Another way they could say is, well, why didn't you just do it? Seems like it was pretty important. Unvalidating, how does that make you feel? Terrible, again. Or how about this? Okay, we're gonna fix this. Tomorrow, we'll go get donuts together, you and I, and we'll go in and I'll talk to your boss. You know, he really likes me, so we'll get along and we'll don't worry, we'll fix this. Or what if your spouse says, wow, that sounds really rough. I'm sorry that happened to you. You know what? I think you'll be able to handle this. I think you'll be able to you'll be able to take care of it. Let me know if I can help you. I'm here to help you any way that you think would be helpful. But I know you'll be able to be okay. See how we have made it safe? We've connected by seeing, by really listening, and then we've expressed confidence because most of the time we know how to solve our own problems. We just need someone to be our cheerleader. Now imagine this with a situation with a kid comes home with an F, you know? I come home with an F. So what can the parents do? They can say, oh, and he comes home, he says F. And well, why do you have an F in that class? Well, I hate the teacher. He hates me. You know, it's a stupid subject, blah, 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 blah. What can the parents do? Well, it's not a stupid subject. You need to learn this in order to get into college. And you're in 10th grade, and it's really important right now. And now we're going to take away your phone because you're getting an F. Less effective, right? Now, if we look at it from this lens, we could say, wow, that sounds rough. I had a few teachers I really didn't like in high school, too. That's hard. That's really hard. You know, let me know if there's anything I can do to help you with this, but I think you've got it. Instead of saying, oh, you know, we're going to march into the principal's office tomorrow, or I'm going to talk to them. You can kind of see the difference in these approaches, right? And when we think about how it affects us as adults, we can see, you know, kids' feelings are the same as our feelings. They're just on over different subjects. So in order to express this confidence and build this confidence, when we have that safe and connected relationship, there's a few things we can do. We can help our kids remember times when they overcame difficult things. You know, remember the time you went in and talked to Mr. So-and-so in 6th grade, and he was really helpful with you? Maybe that's something you could do here. We can build confidence by trusting, expressing confidence. Sometimes that's all we need to do is say, you know, you got this. You got this. I think you can figure this out. And we can practice. And this comes into play, especially when we're building skills. And these kids that struggle with things, sometimes maybe they're coping skills, strategies for emotional regulation, or when we're feeling down, we can practice. You know, we can role play. I'm a huge fan of role playing. We do it a lot at my house. You know, we're coming home late from something, and I say, okay, what are we going to do right when we get home? We're going to do this, this, this. We walk it through. We practice, right? So we build that confidence. Sometimes all we need to do is express confidence. And another analogy I kind of like to think of is that it's like life is like a roller coaster, and we're just along for the ride. We're sitting in the cart with our kid, and we tell him, you know, I'm here. We're going to be here together. We're going to go the ups and the downs, and I'm here. I'm on your team. Another phrase I love is, it's not you versus me. It's you and me versus the problem. We want to make sure we're doing a team-based approach with our kids where we're building their confidence and their competence. And then we have to believe, and these are the implications here, that people will thrive, our children will thrive and turn into that beautiful plant that they were meant to be when we provide this kind of nourishing environment for our kids, when we have those kind of relationships and build those confidences and those competences. We have to believe that the kids want to thrive. They want to be good. You know, when I am so at my max with my kids, sometimes I'm guilty of thinking that they're out to get me, because it really feels that way sometimes. And if you have kids, I think you probably can relate to this. They know all the right buttons, and they go there a lot. And my main takeaway when I first learned about this was they're not trying to make everything miserable. They're not trying to fail. They want to thrive. They really do. And when kids aren't, we need to look at what's missing underneath that top of the pyramid. So let's look at how looking at things through this lens can kind of shift our results in some way. So all of the people we're going to talk about here are actual patients of Dr. Swenson's. Nathan is a teen who recently announced his intention to drop out of school, in part because he doesn't see any path to graduation due to excessive school absences and failed classes. School administrators say that he's often found with friends who skip class to smoke weed. Okay, so what do you think usually happens with a kid like Nathan? What do you think he's getting from his parents? Just a typical kind of knee-jerk response. What do you think he's getting? A lot of fighting. Okay, so there's probably contention. There's tension in those relationships, yeah. What about at school? What do you think the teachers, the administrators are doing? Maybe Nathan's getting suspended. Maybe he's getting expelled. Parents probably have grounded him. Maybe they've taken away his phone, his car, you know. These are kind of the ways. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what he said was that maybe he's been labeled at this point. Maybe he's a druggie, maybe he's lazy, unmotivated. You know, we've grouped him in with this class of kids that just doesn't make it, right? They don't want to. So like I said, let's look at this from another lens, and Dr. Swenson will, in this little video, he will share what actually happened when Nathan came into his office.
Nathan came in, and I kind of went into my pyramid mode. And I was thinking, okay, well, it sounds like he just doesn't do well in school, but let's start at the bottom. And I said, well, how are you sleeping? Not very well, actually. So we talked about that. Are you eating well? I've gained 10 pounds in the last 6 months. Getting anything for exercise? No. And so we kind of start processing, and I say, you know, maybe we could work on some of these things, get a little more sunshine. And he's kind of still got his head down. And I said, I really want to know how you're feeling about dropping out of high school. Can we talk about that? And we continued to talk, and I think I was doing my very best. All I was thinking in my mind is, how do I be safe? How do I not judge him? How do I not fix this? How do we sort of figure out how to collaborate? And at some point, Nathan started just crying, and I had no idea why. It's tears. And he said, Dr. Swenson, for the last 2 weeks, I've driven to school, I've sat in my car in the parking lot for 6 hours, and then I've driven home because he's too anxious to face the school administrators, too overwhelmed to talk to his parents or to drop out. He was devastated. And I felt so grateful to be the first person he told that to. And I thanked him. And we made a lot of progress after that, moving him forward, talking about his relationships, and then putting together a plan for school, which he did go back and he did graduate. But he just needed a safe place. He needed a safe place to talk.
That's a really powerful story. You think about this, this big, burly teenage boy. He doesn't want to tell anybody that he's too afraid. He didn't feel safe in any of his relationships to share how he was really feeling. And they didn't make any progress until they were able to open up that safety and make a connection, and then they could make a plan, right? Another interesting thing about Nathan is, kids like Nathan get labeled as lazy or unmotivated, right? So let's take just a second here and talk about motivation and the difference between motivation and ability. And one way to think about this is, let's say that I'm trying to hit a baseball because it's gym class, and my gym teacher says, okay, if you don't hit the baseball, you're going to fail. You're going to fail gym class. Well, I'm pretty motivated because I don't like Fs, but I swing and I miss. So we're like, okay, well, we clearly need to motivate Danny a little bit more. So Dad comes and he stands there with a $100 bill and he says, all right, if you can hit this baseball, then I'll give you $100. Well, now I'm really motivated, and I still miss. And then maybe all my friends come and they start cheering me on. And we're learning that rewards don't work here with me and baseballs. So we decide that Mom needs to come with her own bat and stand behind me and threaten to hit me in the back if I don't hit the ball. So could I be more motivated to hit the ball? No, I'm about as motivated as I can be. But I still swing and I miss. And then I feel terrible. Now why? Why am I not hitting the ball, right? I don't know how. I'm not good at it. We don't know, We don't know why I'm not good at it. Genetics, training, maybe I'm really tired, whatever. We don't know why, but my ability isn't there. So motivation isn't enough if someone's not able to do what they need to do. So if something's missing on the bottom, then we're not going to be able to achieve these goals that we're looking for if those abilities are missing. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about that it's not always about rewards and consequences. Sometimes, kids, we have to believe that kids are motivated to succeed on their own. That's inherent in being human, is that we want to succeed. And that if we're not doing that, then some needs are not being met. Okay, let's practice this application. We're going to talk about May now. May is a 4th grader who has shown low frustration tolerance and even some aggression repeatedly over the past several weeks. She threw a volleyball at a peer's face and a pen across the classroom at her teacher. Okay, let's pretend you're her teacher. What do you think might be a typical response to a student that behaves this way? Okay, we label her and we punish her, right? Punishments, consequences. So May stays in from recess and has to write apology notes to everyone that she affected. Now, looking at it from what we know now, after we've been talking about this for a little while, is this going to be the most effective way in helping May change her behavior? No, it's not. So, and it's not that consequences and rewards are bad or wrong. They have their place. And consequences especially, it's how we implement them that really matters, and whether we rely on them too heavily. So what can happen sometimes is these kids, especially challenging kids, they kind of start this spiral out of control, and we feel like we don't know what to do. So we just start doling out the consequences. You're going to lose this, and then you're going to do this, and now you're grounded, and this, and this, and this, and this, right? And it becomes this kind of death spiral of power struggle. But can we have the emotional generosity to step back and look at, because we're the adult in the room, right? To step back and say, okay, what needs are not being met? Is she tired? Let's look at this. What can we do to care for May right now? Is she tired? Is she well rested? Does she need a snack? Is she overstimulated? Could we give her a little bit of a break? Look at those physical needs. And then safety needs. Let's brainstorm. What's a need that you could care for? What could we do to care for May's needs in the classroom? Let's say we're May's teacher, and she just threw a pen at us. Yes. Okay, letting things cool down, removing her from the situation. Now I want to ask, how should we do that? What should it look like when we remove the child from the situation? Because sometimes children need to be removed from the situation, right? Yes, I love that. So I can see that you're having a hard time. Let's go take a little bit of a break. It's not punitive, right? May's going to feel safe still with us because we haven't shut that down by saying, you're in big trouble. Go to timeout, you know? Go put the dunce cap on and stare in the corner. Thankfully, we don't do that anymore. What about connection? What can we do to connect with May for her teacher? Yes.
Ask her how she's doing.
Okay, ask her how she's doing.
Have a conversation with her. No one is after that. It doesn't feel like anyone talking about that situation. How are you doing?
Yeah, asking her, you know, maybe nobody's asked her. Maybe she needs someone to say, how are you doing today? Thank you. Maybe we could be a little bit silly. Maybe we could share a joke or a sticker. This is hard. This is hard for us as adults when we're tired and worn down. It really is. And I just want to pause here and say we need to give ourselves some grace sometimes because we're not going to get it right every time. And sometimes we beat ourselves up about that. And that's okay. We can always apologize, right? I believe that if we can get it right somewhere around half of the time and apologize for the other half, our kids are going to be okay. Those relationships are going to be okay. Okay, so then what can we do maybe to move up? What other needs could we meet for May? Now that we've got a safe and connected relationship with May, then we build confidence or competence, right? We work on those skills. We say, okay, when you feel so frustrated that you want to throw a pen, what can we do instead? Let's practice that. Yes. Yes. Okay, so what if she's showing aggression towards another one of your children? What was the rest of your question? Okay. Okay, that is a great question. Does anybody want to take a stab at it? So the question was, we've got two kids. One is physically harming the other. Does that sum it up, basically? And we need to intervene because we're almost to blood. There may already be blood. What can we do? Yes?
I think I would separate them, but still look at each mom with empathy, give them the aggressor.
Yes. Oh,
We don't really know what.
yes. Okay, I love that. Separate them. Obviously, they need to be separated, right? There may need to be some consequences. But look at even the aggressor with empathy. I love that. Yes?
Start at the bottom of your pyramid, especially if you're like physical violence close to blood. Be like, hand okay, like things like that, and then move up in the pyramid. Okay. Talk to each kid about like, how they felt. Get to that, but then also as tensions have died down, bring them back together so that they can work on their pyramid, their relationship as well, so that it's not just separating the two kids forever.
Yeah. Okay, so she said we're going to start at the bottom with the physical needs and make sure that everybody's okay physically, right? But separate them because that's a need to be physically safe. And then, no, you're fine. So, and then we're going to work on working up from there with each one kids and then bring them back after tensions have calmed down. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm certainly not an expert, so I don't know how I feel about like trying to give advice or how to approach the situation. But one thing that I feel pretty confident in work and life is that dealing with children and with adolescents. Obviously, when something gets that far, people are in a heightened emotion state. There's some dysregulation going on there. And so, as the adult in the room, like you mentioned before, I think the first thing that we need to be aware of is that we are not allowed to raise ourselves to their emotional state and then expect to be able to bring everything back down. Right? I think that one of the key things is being able to stay at the bottom of whatever your emotion elevator is so that you can encourage your kid or the kid in the situation to come back down and meet you there.
Yes.
I feel like the best ways to do that, I'm sure that depends on the kid, and that's when you start going through the pyramid and finding out like what led to this heightened emotional state. Because I think sometimes as an adult we want to assume that we know how they got there without going through the time of asking them like what
Yeah.
Or, why did you choose that pen in particular?
Yes, thank you. So what he's saying is basically we need to keep our emotions in check, make sure that we keep the temperature, our own temperatures down low, cool, regardless of what's going on around us, and then not make assumptions about what's necessarily going on. Does that answer your question, do you feel like? Another thing I would say is obviously they need to be physically separated, but again, the way we separate them really matters. You know, do we march in there angry and yank somebody by the arm and give them a nursemaid's elbow and throw them in their room and lock the door? Or do we just gently say, you know, I have children that you can't even talk to when they get to that state. And one thing I've found, and this is me personally, not professionally, but is that we've talked about it beforehand. We've said, if you get to here, I am going to gently guide you to your room. And then that's what we're going to do. And if you resist, I'm going to more forcefully guide you to your room, but I'm going to stay calm. And preparing for that in advance lets them know that, oh, I'm in that state in this moment. And then once they're calm, then we can reason with them, right? Because like you said, when we are at that level of dysregulation, there's no, like the front of the brain has turned off. No amount of lecturing or consequences is going to pull us out of that, okay? So that's a great question. Any other comments there? Thoughts, questions? I love that. Okay. So Dr. Swenson's going to elaborate just a little bit about this in our next video.
The other implication of this pyramid is you have to trust that when you meet a person's needs, they will thrive. And that requires a little bit of faith, because often the problem seems here, and you have to back up and say, I'm just going to look at this person and say, how are we doing with their needs? Physical needs, safety, connection, confidence. Is there some way that I could just help with one of those things? And it might not feel like you're directly tackling whatever you think the problem is, but you have to believe that if you'll just sort of attend to those needs and get out of the way and have a little bit of faith in people, that they will self-actualize. It's up to us.
Okay. Again, just that message of believing that meeting needs will help someone thrive. Okay, we'll look at another example. Carter is 8 and has severe ADHD. His parents report they're exhausted by his behavior, and they report he lies about everything. He's stolen from other students at school and recently scratched all the kitchen cabinets with a knife. Why does Carter lie and steal? We don't know. Let's just concede we don't know. We don't know why he does it, because other kids with ADHD don't lie and steal necessarily. Or other kids that are in similar situations don't. We don't know exactly why. And what do we think has already been tried? Well, Carter had all of his things taken away. They'd taken away everything. They came to Dr. Swenson and said, Dr. Swenson, we have taken away everything from this kid. And he said, well, it's probably time to try something else. So what does Carter need? Looking at this from, again, the bottom up. Let's look at his physical needs. We're not going to discount that. Maybe he does need some medication. How is he sleeping? Are there some things we could do there? Safety. Does Carter feel safe to fail? This kid is going to get it wrong a lot. Does he feel safe that no matter how many times he gets it wrong, we're still going to love him? He's still safe with us? Do you feel safe to be him? I mean, he knows he's a difficult kid. He knows. Is it safe to still be him? Can we make sure that he knows? Can we focus on the things that we love about him? Can we make a connection? How can we make sure we're putting deposits in the bank so that when we have to say, Carter, stop, don't do that. Stop, 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 stop. We're not drawing from an empty well. And then when we have that relationship, when things are calm, are we working on the confidence? Are we practicing the skills? Are we remembering times he was successful? Do we expressing trust in him that he can do it? And then when we get out of when we do that, we have to believe that Carter will eventually thrive. And I just want to say with safety, one thing I forgot to mention earlier is my favorite phrase with safety is don't freak out. That no matter what a kid is coming to tell you, whether it's, Mom, I scratched the kitchen cabinets with a knife, or you walk into it, they're probably not going to come tell you. You're going to find it. Can you do that? Can you notice that? Can you find out without freaking out? Because a freak out is what shuts down the safety. Can a kid come and tell you that they're failing a class and you won't freak out? Could a kid come and tell you they're leaving the religion of their youth and you won't freak out? Could they tell you they're pregnant and you won't freak out? I mean, these are kind of some more dramatic examples, but can we practice, no matter how we're feeling inside, because we love this person so much, we want to see them thrive. We want to see them thrive in the way we think that maybe it's going to look. But can we keep that that calmness, like you were saying, stay on the bottom of the emotional elevator so that they feel safe to come and tell us whatever it is. Maintain that connection. Connection is the best prevention. And then express confidence and have that confidence. Not, we're not faking it. We want to believe that they're going to thrive. They're going to figure it out, and express that confidence and express that we're a team. Okay. Any other questions? There's a little video we don't have time for, unfortunately. That's okay. We'll just wrap up with this. Dr. Swenson says, I would love it if parents would ask themselves every day, what can I do to help the children in my life feel safe, connected, and confident? Because when we meet kids' needs, that's how we're building resilient kids. And just to wrap up, we'd love it if you would follow us on social media and take out your phones right now and just plug us in. That's because we know that this kind of thing in 1 hour is wonderful, and we're so glad that you're here, but this is the kind of thing we need daily reminders about. It's so easy to get back into the routine of life, and if you will follow us on social media, we will post things that will help you remember this idea of safety, connection, and confidence, and different ways that you can apply it, and hopefully that'll keep it fresh until it just becomes a more natural way of how we interact with children. And then we also have our resilience handbook. I love this thing. It goes into more depth on each of these 3 areas. We'll send you home with one of those. You can take a couple if you'd like. And then I just want to thank you for being here. And did anyone else have any other questions or situations they want to try to apply this to before we wrap up? Yes?
I just wanted to point out that sometimes kids will need more of one. So I think it's a lot like that. At school, all sorts of issues. With me, perfect angel. With me, he loves to cuddle. Lap, next to me, sleep in my room,
Yay.
So he's great with me when he's getting one-on-one attention, that connection. It's at school and he's going to share it with 30 others.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning.
Yeah, so he was just saying sometimes they'll need more of one thing than another. He has a son who does great at home because he can snuggle and cuddle dad and get some one-on-one attention. And at school, it's much more of a challenge because he's got to share that attention with everyone. So that's a great point, and the way this applies is different for every kid, and we have to kind of be in tune and sensitive to that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
How do you apply this or help maybe as a team of parents or maybe there's a little bit of inequality in understanding of this or a little bit of resistance to applying this? How do you, does that make sense?
Yeah, so like if we're a group of adults working with a kid, or parents maybe between 2 spouses, or a divorce situation or something like that, if we're trying to help a child, how do we apply this when one other parent doesn't have the buy-in? Is that kind of, or this? Yeah, so what I would say is you do your best when you are with that child, because ultimately we cannot control what the other person does. You can offer it, but you can't make them buy into it, and you can't force anyone to do anything. But you can be that for that child. And for at least when they're with you, you can offer the safety and the connection and build the confidence and meet those physical needs. Because ultimately, we only have that control in our own realm, right? And that's a big issue, and it's hard. It's hard when you're working with someone that, maybe we're not on the same page. And was that helpful at all? Does anyone else have anything they want to say about that? Okay. Any other comments or questions before we wrap up? Okay, well, I thank you guys so much for being here, and then I'll give Janet a minute here. She wants to wrap up.
Let's